I am 15 years old and my family and I have just moved into a new house. While unloading our belongings, I noticed that the neighbors were watching us from their homes. Following the family rule of being friendly, I waved to them as a greeting. However, I became uncomfortable when I saw that among them was a man in his 30s, and his smile grew wider when he noticed my waving. I went inside and looked around our new house. It was huge. When I got to my room, I noticed that it had a pretty good view of the front yard. The only thing was, people outside could look into my room too. My mom didn't like it, but I kept arguing with her until she agreed to let me keep the room. As summer vacation began, my mother kept urging me to go outside and play baseball. She really wanted me to enjoy the nice weather and make new friends in our neighborhood. So I decided to grab my baseball gear and headed outside to play with my brothers and dad. As I looked at the houses across the street from ours, I noticed an interesting guy. Although he looked a little strange, he wasn't accompanied by any company. I asked my dad if I could call him over to play with us. My dad, bent on trusting people, agreed and said, "Invite him." I walked across the street and approached this guy, asked his name, and he said his name was Austin. Asked if he wanted to join our baseball game, and Austin happily agreed, saying, "Sure, since you play." We had a great time playing together. When the game was over, Austin walked back to his house across the street, waving and smiling at me. The next day, my parents went to pack their things. Although I wasn't drawn to go with them, I decided to stay home and unpack my things in the quiet of my room. Suddenly, I remembered that I had forgotten to lock the door like my mom had told me to. As I was about to head to the living room, I heard the sound of the front door opening and closing. At first, I thought it might be Mom or Dad, and I was about to call out to them, but a strange feeling came over me. I realized with great amazement that it wasn't my parents, but Austin. He walked into the house and closed the door behind him. As soon as I noticed this, I got scared and ran to my room as fast as I could. I hid in my closet, still hearing his footsteps coming closer and closer. He entered my room, opened the dresser drawers, and started searching through them. Then he left the room and walked down the hallway. I looked out of the closet and saw my underwear scattered on the floor. Silently, I followed him down the hallway, hoping he wouldn't notice me. I really wished he would just go into another room. But instead, Austin turned around and opened the bathroom door, and I didn't know what he was looking for in there. Once the hallway was clear, I didn't waste another minute and ran out the front door as fast as I could. Then I hurried to the neighbor's house nearby. I was so scared. When I got there, I cried and told them everything that had happened. They were very sympathetic and immediately called the police. They kept me inside until the police arrived. The cops looked around the neighborhood, but they couldn't find Austin. I haven't seen him again since. When I was about 10 years old, we lived next door to a mysterious woman. She had an exceptional appearance. Her long black hair and pale skin only added to her mystery. She rarely left her house, so we simply nicknamed her Vampire Lady. No one even knew her name. She was so secretive. However, when someone passed by her house, she would always look at them. I could hardly believe my mom's stories or my brother's stories. It sounded too unreal. But one day, when my friend Jess came to visit, I decided to tell her about the mysterious woman across the street. Jess, like me, was curious and suggested to me that at night, when everyone was asleep, we go inside her house and see what was going on. Even though I had my doubts, I agreed. We knew we had to be incredibly careful not to wake my mom. Terrified, I realized that at my age, going outside in the dark was strictly forbidden, but still bravely decided to try and walk out of the house, holding hands and trying not to make a sound. Now the only thing in front of us was to cross the street to reach the house of the mysterious woman. All inside peered hopefully through the windows, and at last Jess grasped my hand and whispered quietly but insistently, "Let's go. Let's go." "What?" "We just got here. What happened?" I asked, as Jess pulled me along and we walked back down across the street. The door slammed shut, and Jess said as she looked out the window and saw something that looked very much like a video camera that showed a small flashing light. I offered to block out the event and just go to bed discussing everything in the morning. But unfortunately, the story didn't end there. As the clock on the wall showed 3 in the morning, Jess suddenly started screaming. I quickly climbed up on the bunk bed to see what was going on and saw a camera lens pointed directly at our bedroom window. My mom and brothers suddenly burst into my room, illuminating it with the lights on. This, of course, startled the person who was apparently filming everything on camera. To reassure her and tell her of my suspicions, I warned my mom that someone was watching us from the outside. After glancing around her room, my mom decided to go outside with bat in hand and survey the neighborhood. She wandered around for a few minutes and then came back and asked us what the person watching us looked like. All my sister Jess and I could describe was the camera lens. We could see him just fine. Although we had no proof, we felt in our hearts that it was the woman from across the street. My mother was a little angry that we, while waiting for morning, told her how we guessed that the looks were coming from this woman. We were not allowed to go near her house after the incident, and to this day I still sometimes have bad dreams about the incident. I share an apartment with my roommate, whose name is Sarah. We are cozy and have established a comfortable routine. I was 31 years old at the time, and although most people at that age are on their own, I liked living with my roommate. We've known each other since our college days, and our personalities complement each other perfectly. We have a 2-bedroom apartment and a nice house, and Sarah and I have grown accustomed to this day-to-day life, doing our own thing, taking casual walks and enjoying each other's company. One night, however, turned our perception of the safety of our home upside down. I remember that night as if it were yesterday, even though it had been over 5 years. It was a normal Thursday night, and we decided to finish watching our favorite TV shows. We settled down on the couch with some goodies, chatting about our day and sharing silly gossip. It was such a relaxing evening that we looked forward to a restful night's sleep. When the clock struck midnight, we decided to call it a night. I went to my room, Sarah to her room. I changed into some comfortable clothes and got into bed. Just as I was about to close my eyes, I thought I heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway. I figured it was probably Sarah going to get a glass of water or something. But the footsteps didn't stop on her side of the room. They kept moving towards my bedroom. Excitement mixed with fear, and I strained to listen to the sounds. The door to my room opened slowly, creaking, and my heart thumped harder. Before I could react, the darkness was broken by Sarah's voice. "Someone's here," she whispered, and her voice sounded trembling. I jumped up from the bed and glanced at the doorway. There was a man standing in the hallway. He was tall with a disheveled look. I recognized him. I had seen him in this house. He was one of our neighbors. My breath caught as I tried to realize what was happening. At that moment, I slammed the door shut and blocked it with my body. Then I heard footsteps again. He was coming after me. He started banging on the door and trying to open it. I yelled to Sarah to call the police. Then I heard her yelling for the man to leave because the police were on their way. The banging continued for another 10 seconds, then stopped. At that point, I heard the man walking away. When the police finally arrived, we told them everything. We said it was one of our neighbors, but we weren't sure which apartment he lived in. From the description we gave them, they were able to track him down and arrest him. We never found out what he wanted, but I think it's safe to say the guy was not right in the head. I learned 2 lessons from that experience. The first is to never live alone, and the second is to always lock your damn doors.